dream is dead. But if I get elected president, I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and we will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
2016, year of the snake. It's time for a change in the White House, y'all. Bring it.
November 3rd, 2020. As always, hello and welcome to the show. Who is Trump's competition? That's a really good question. That's a really good question. Nobody. To be honest, nobody. How's it going, Tim? Good to see you. Welcome. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that way. I believe that fact as well. But the Democrats do have some strategies. They do have some sneaky plans. We're going to talk about some of that a little bit later in the show. So, we're just letting folks come on into the room. Share the show while you can. As we know, Facebook, Twitter, all work very hard to block me from being viewed. So, as it goes, Cindy, great. But do share, click the share button, let folks know we're live. That's what we do right about this point. That's what we do right about this point. I agree, very important globally. And you see in the great successes we're having with chronic problems, rogue nations, trade deals that we're working more and more in favor of big banks. We see more and more nations inspired by Trump and by the Trump movement taking their own country back, giving government to their own people as well, giving the government back in each country's own way. It's very interesting to see. It's very interesting to watch, and we are living in an amazing time. Audrey, how's it going? Kevin, good to see you, my friend. There's my Munkin. We do. And we actually would love for other countries to recognize how great and what freedom that can be. I know the people in Venezuela would have really appreciated some firearms. We are very tired of that. The American people are very tired, and it's of seeing Trump drugged down by the Democrats, but we're not tired of winning yet. So we continue. You know, it's more important. I'll just turn this down for a second. It's more important. We believe here in America, it's more important to make sure that President Trump can continue the great work he's doing with the world and with this country. And if that means we have to put up with some whiny Democrats for another 4 years, we'll do it. We don't like it, but we'll do it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. You are watching the one and only Trump Talk US live in D.C. with Suzzanne Monk. I am Suzzanne Monk. Our nation's capital is about 8 minutes away from where we are right now. We're about 13 minutes away from our president's fantastic White House. We have Chris McDonald in the room here with us on Facebook representing. We appreciate his efforts so much. We are live right now on YouTube, on Periscope, and on Facebook, both on my profile and on Trump Talk US, right there on the Facebook page. So I'm spreading out to make sure in this critical 2020 election that we continue to have the ability to spread this information, to spread wisdom, to spread motivation, keep people focused and active. The Democrats have a lot of stuff, as ridiculous as they are, as much as they're shooting themselves in the foot again and again. They still got shenanigans, you guys. They still have shenanigans. They think they got moves. We're going to talk about that a little bit. So, Angels, how's it going? Good to see you all. All right. I want to first talk about that's great. I want to first talk about the War Powers resolution passed by the House. I believe they finished that vote today. A few Republicans, 3 Republicans crossing over to vote with the Democrats. Otherwise, it was an entirely partisan vote. Now, those 3 Republicans have gotten some people really riled up. Okay, because one of those 3 Republicans was Congressman Matt Gaetz down in Florida. And is why Republican governors wanting more Democrat voting refugees. Well, we're going to talk about this a little bit, Angels, because this is one of the things we're seeing. You know, it is, hey, Lisa, how's it going? It's President Trump, when he ran for office, when he ran as a Republican, we knew from the very beginning, the Republicans were not 100% with us. They still are not 100% with us. In fact, there is a Republican group. I don't even know how you could call yourself a Republican group and be this. They're called the Lincoln Project. They're literally investing millions of dollars in trying to convince evangelical voters to be tired of Trump and to not want Trump anymore. To, quote, whittle away at the Republican support for President Trump. Now, how do you call yourself a Republican? And literally you're whittling away your own party's leadership in the White House. This is what we're experiencing again and again. And we see the same thing going on in the votes. We see frequently a riling up and a fear in the MAGA movement that what we're dealing with, thank you, Joshua, what we're dealing with is some rhinos, Republican in name only. We got a lot of rhinos, okay? Now, I believe if you listen to Matt Gaetz's explanation, I don't think Matt Gaetz is a rhino in that sense, okay? I think he's one of us. I think he tried to play this little, I'm reaching across the aisle because I agree we shouldn't have eternal wars. It's kind of like a freedom caucus-y kind of thing he's trying to do. But it pissed everybody in the MAGA movement off. It pissed everyone. There's already a huge battle. Unfortunately, some issues he's already had with keeping some of his more conservative voters in his pocket, considering some of his personal lifestyle choices. I don't care. I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care what kind of relationship you have. I don't care who you love. I don't care about any of those things. But I understand why people are very upset about this vote. We've got to be a little more cautious when we are, however, jumping on bandwagons against our champions, people who are repeatedly up there again and again, championing our causes and our issues. We need to be cautious jumping on the bandwagon against them because they've made one wrong move. Because we literally have, throughout the GOP, much graver concerns than Matt Gaetz in this one little vote. As I mentioned, this group of Republican leaders through the Lincoln Project who are attempting to erode evangelical support for the president. We have seen the Mitt Romneys of the party. We've seen again and again. In fact, let's all remember after the 2016 primary, Donald Trump had won the primary. The RNC, the Republican Party, and members, well-known Republican donors actually donated to the Hillary Clinton campaign. It is not above the Republican establishment to oppose us economically. It is not above them to shoot their own votes in the foot because they do not feel that they are in control. So Unfortunately, it's a great question. Let's bring this up. Grimmage, what matters most, the country or the party? 100%. And this is the question we're asking. This is where we have concern with the Republican establishment, because we Trump voters have come into this political arena. Many of us now, I've been politically active much of my life. Yes, George Conway, exactly, Grimmage. Many others have as well. But we have been a frustrated political group. I've always been a frustrated political activist because I knew and watched under both parties, under Clinton, under Bush, under H.W. Bush, under George W. Bush, under Clinton, under Obama, we were seeing a two-headed hydra. We were seeing basically the two parties doing the exact same thing with a different colored tie on it. I was constantly explaining to my conservative friends that George W. Bush was not a conservative. He was a right-wing progressive, increasing the size of government, increasing our military over expansion, foreign wars, the military-industrial complex, crony capitalism, everything we hated about the left. That's what George W. Bush was doing. And then we got Obama, and then the left did it even worse. So we've been going through that experience where the two parties been killing us, pretending that they're two parties and they're not. Now, because of that, why is that? Well, when you actually start to get into the politics, when you start to see the political process firsthand, people are starting to become aware that the system itself has real issues. It's one of the reasons we have to get in and we have to run for these offices and we have to run for these delegateships. We have to get involved with our local party, even when we know they're a bunch of snakes. They're going to stab you in the back. I have many friends who will tell you this. This is what's going to happen if you are MAGA and you try to involve yourself in your local GOP party. Okay, they're going to be like, oh, that's great. And then when you continue to assert your American first agenda in support of the president, they're going to be jerks. But you're going to have to push past that, because that's exactly what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a group of people where party is more important than country. And that's what we see in the establishment on both sides of the aisle. Party being more important than country. I do party like this in quotes, because it's not really about party, is it? It's actually about power. It's about retaining their political power. The two parties have created over the last several decades, in particular, since we're after Reagan. You know, Reagan actually was the last presidential candidate that was not fully establishment and not cuckolded completely in the establishment when he won office. So, but since then we've seen it's all establishment. It's all establishment madness. And this is why we see the War Powers Resolution. This is why we see Matt Gaetz, making, I think, a bad decision. It's not the first bad decision. And, what I appreciate is that he did not bring other idiots on board with this stupid decision. Sometimes the Republicans, the Republican caucus. Yeah. Grimmage asked a great question. I'm going to discuss it just real quick. He says, do you support anti-establishment liberals? Interesting question, Grimmage. Since the Trump era, I will call it, what I've seen on the liberal side, on the anti-establishment side, are a bunch of anarchists who stand next to communists. And thus, I have a problem with a lot of the, quote, anti-establishment liberals, because I think they're stupid. And I think they're literally standing next to the people who want to destroy them, who believe the utter opposite of that. If you are an anarchist, truly, if you believe in no archy, no government entirely by the people, you can't possibly stand next to a communist because they believe in total government. They don't sometimes admit that. They lie to the anarchists and the anarchists lie to them, and they tell lies to each other. Oh, no, we don't want to bring down the entire government, the anarchists say. And the communists go, oh, no, we don't want to take over the entire government. We both agree we want power to the people. And they don't. Neither want that. None of them want that at all. They don't want power to the people. They are fooled by an ideology. Unfortunately, that has been fed to our youth a false ideology of socialism and collectivism, which is literally a system by which we intellectualize how we become slaves again. Bad. It's bad, bad, bad news. So now here's the thing with the War Powers Resolution. Doesn't matter if Matt Gaetz voted for it or not. It can't get past the Senate. It can't get past the Senate. And it's certainly not going to get past the president. The president is not limiting his own war powers. To be fair, what I find most ridiculous is that it is a resolution passed to oppose something that is already not happening. I mean, we might as well pass a resolution to oppose catching unicorns, domestic breeding of unicorns. Let's pass a resolution against that. Equally not happening. There is no war with Iran. The president is not seeking war with Iran. He is not reaching for war with Iran in any way. In fact, he's been more than tolerant when you look at the drone strike, the attacks and aggression in the Straits of Hormuz. When you look at the repeated attacks, and now, because of course, how's it going, Nick? Good to see you. Now, President Trump comes out to the media because everyone was all upset, so cranky, saying, we need to know what was the intelligence, what could possibly mean that you should kill a known terrorist who we have known who has been a terrorist for several decades. What bit of evidence? Well, Trump's out there on the news shows getting ridiculed by stating the evidence, which is, according to our information, Soleimani had planned attacks on 4 U.S. embassies. 4 U.S. embassies. Imminent attacks. One of those being the embassy in Baghdad, which is already attacked. Oh, what imminent possible threat could there have been? I don't know. American loss of life. So ridiculous. Polly, sweetie, you have a great day. You have a great day. So, now, here's what's interesting. The same Democrats who are busy worried that Trump is going to start a war with Iran are literally, some of them in the process, including candidate Pete Buttigieg, who suggested that it was Trump's fault somehow that Iran shot down the 737 Ukrainian airliner with, I believe, 178 souls on board, as they refer to it. 178 people died because Iran shot down the 737. Now, Iran continues to say, well, we didn't shoot it down. How dare you say we shut it down? How dare you have satellite evidence of us shooting it down? How dare you have pictures of the parts of the rocket that we used to shoot it down? We're not giving you the black boxes. What do you mean we cleaned up the whole site suspiciously? Screw you. You're bigots. You hate Iranians. This is Iran. So, what we do know is, in fact, there is no evidence that there was somehow a failure of the plane itself, despite the fact that the media continues to try to spin that as a possible cause by talking again and again about the dangers of 737 Supermaxes. Now, one, is my understanding this was not a 737 Supermax because 737 Supermaxes have been grounded. So, it is highly irresponsible for the news to continue to try to confuse the American people about the cause of this attack. Actually, nothing like that, Gav. And we're not going to play the game where you try to make quote comments that are totally out of context. That's just dumb. So, what we are seeing is literally an endangerment of airline travel everywhere because when you are not being honest about the cause of the crash, you are already causing paranoia and fear in individuals. So now we have a concern about 737s beyond Supermax, not just the 737 Supermax, but all 737s. Now the entire line of 737 airliners is now suspicious. Is it? Or is it suspicious because the media is so desperate to retain a narrative that has already been proven false? We see Iran. Now, was it an accident? Did they accidentally shoot down the plane? Did they intend to shoot down the plane? Who was on that plane? I don't know. These are all great questions we have to ask. I'm going to bring up one of the comments right here. Alitan, now Periscope, I will say to my viewers, I do get a lot of, when you get Periscope viewers, you do get a lot of trolls, but every now and then, and I love actually being able to communicate cross-platform with people who maybe don't agree with my policies, my politics, or my president, but can certainly see good when they see it. Alitan 69 says, not a huge Trump fan, but he handled Iran very, very well. Thank you. We agree here on Trump Nation. We agree here on Trump Talk US. The president has handled Iran very well and continues to do that because we continue to see Iran and the mainstream media trying to push us closer and closer to a military conflict. Now the latest attempt to push us closer to a military conflict, despite President Trump and the Iranian leadership, by the way, claiming on both sides that they are done with the escalation. They are done with this tit for tat right now. We have accomplished that goal. We have moved on. And now we're going to go forward from there, de-escalating tensions. In fact, President Trump had an opportunity to take out an additional Iranian leader of the Quds force down in Yemen. Did not choose to do that. They had attempted to do that when they took out Soleimani. That mission did not succeed. He had an attempt to move forward with it again, chose not to do that at this time of de-escalation. How's it going, Sharon? So the president is behaving very responsibly. Who's behaving highly irresponsibly is the mainstream media, literally taking the Iranian lies and reporting them in a way that isn't just dangerous as a fact of terrorism, but is dangerous to airline safety itself by misrepresenting the safety of this 737 plane. If it was shot down, there's nothing wrong with the plane. And there's nothing wrong with that line of planes. We, the flying public, should not be terrorized by a media who is obsessed with anything anti-Trump. And at this point, they're so anti-Trump, they would literally rather frighten everyone away from flying on a 737 with misinformation than by just giving us real, honest information about the safety of flight travel on the 737 series. That's how bad it is. They're putting our lives all at risk, actually. And they don't care because they hate Trump. Because, people like our little trolls here, they have Trump derangement syndrome. They need help. Now, interestingly enough, there might be some help on the way because I have read a recent article today that OAN, the America One News Network, One American News Network, OANN, is at this moment courting some potential buyers that may get them a bigger cable deal that would expand their reach and exposure in this critical election year. So that's important. And I'm going to keep up on what's going on with that because we need to keep pushing back, particularly when you see what Mike Bloomberg is doing. So we're going to talk about Mike Bloomberg in just a little second. Trump rally last night, fantastic. There was another one on Tuesday in New Jersey. So we're going to be doing great things as far as making sure that the president gets to speak, and then I'm going to speak, the president speak, I'm going to speak. It's going to back and forth. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is actually coming along as a really good schedule. I want to talk a little bit about Mike Bloomberg and his strategy and what's going on with the Democrat candidates. towards the end of the show here, I want to talk about a few more things before we get to that, because once we start talking about this Bloomberg situation, we're going to need to talk about some strategy. And I think it's critical that we kind of leave on that good note of here's what we can all be doing. Here's what they're going to try to do. Here's what we need to try to do. So we're going to close out on that. But let's talk about the Epstein special on ABC last night. You guys, did any of you watch the Jeffrey Epstein Truth and Lies special on ABC, interviewing several of his victims who have come forward who are involved in civil litigation against Epstein and the Epstein estate going forward after his perfectly timed cough, suicide. Now, the special does not in any way challenge the idea that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, other than it does have a quote from one of the victims who openly claims that she does not believe that Epstein killed himself. She believes that to be ridiculous, as most of us do. In fact, autopsies are showing. Now, here's what's funny. We've already actually seen the day after the suicide some very interesting evidence as to whether or not the body that they openly displayed. Do you notice how they brought the body out uncovered? Do they ever do that? So suspicious. So, there's a lot of theory going on already that, in fact, Jeff, that the body that the autopsies are being done on isn't Jeffrey Epstein already. So, regardless, nobody believes he actually killed himself. We don't believe the fact that the video camera footage was suddenly lost. He was taken off suicide watch the day of his suicide. There are so many coincidences to the Epstein suicide. And as you know, the conspiracy theory made its way all the way up to the Golden Globes and Ricky Gervais's monologue. So it's a pervasive concept, the pervasive idea throughout the culture. Epstein didn't kill himself. We all know the memes. We've all seen it 100 times. The show, Epstein's Truth and Lies, did not go much into that factor, but it did go significantly. Thank you, Jenna. It did go significantly into the individual cases of the women who are continuing legal litigation against Epstein and the estate. It did talk about specific actions. It started to detail some of the criminal behavior. It certainly was a devastating piece of television. If your name is Ghislaine, if you're Ghislaine Maxwell, that was not a good TV show for you, because it made it very clear that Ghislaine Maxwell is in fact the known living coordinator and collaborator with the sexual predator crimes, child sexual predator crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. She was a known contributor to those crimes. And so certainly it's one of the things that the victims were very concerned about. Why is she not yet in jail? These are all great questions. These are no great questions. Lee, you're absolutely right. I'm going to put this up on the screen. Lee says there was no mention of Clinton on that 2-hour special last night. You're right, Lee. But interestingly, did you notice there were several mentions and photos and drawn out points of Neil Acosta, I believe, who the former Labor Secretary under Trump, who I am told, was the one who made the deal with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I like that they do actually in the interview itself, in the show itself, they show a clip where Mr. Acosta is being asked, did that order come from above? Were you told to make that deal from above? And they didn't show the answer. They did not show him answering the question. So I found it so ridiculous that they continue to play up this one aspect of this one individual, but it is the only Trump connection that they have. Notice also at the beginning of the show, they of course want to mention Trump's name in Jeffrey Epstein's Rolodex. But notice they don't talk about the list of celebrities. The only celebrity it is acceptable to throw under the bus is, of course, Prince Andrew. And they did that quite significantly. So we certainly see an interesting situation because we now, it is common knowledge that Jeffrey Epstein was a child sexual predator of prolific proportions, that the federal government under the FBI of Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and George W. Bush, let's be honest, his investigation started in 96, you guys. They started the investigations in 96. This is when the first police report against Jeffrey Epstein became public, and when the investigation actually began. Now, I don't know about you, but Trump was not president in 1996. Who was president in 1996? Let's just look it up. Let's just look up who was the U.S. president in 1996. Oh, look, you can't see on the screen. Let's see if I can just pull a little picture up. Look, it's your buddy. It's your buddy Bill. You see, you can never see that. There. Oh, there he is. Look who it is. It's Bill. It's Bill. The president, the leadership in charge at the time when the FBI looked the other way and intentionally dropped the ball was either the Clintons, the Bushes, or the Obamas. Fact. It is under President Trump that we actually saw Jeffrey Epstein be not only arrested and held, but in the process of actually being held accountable for his crimes. Now, interestingly enough, the exact jail where Hillary Clinton had some amazing connections with the staff there was somehow unable to keep Jeffrey Epstein alive, despite being one of the most secure prison facilities in the metropolitan New York area. So the same Clintons that are on the Lolita Express, the Jeffrey Epstein flight to the island, which they talk extensively about the island and how he raped young girls on the island, bringing them there, trapping them there on the island, and then raping them. Bill Clinton actually was on that log over 26 times. See, the FAA has to actually log who's on these planes. So we actually have to go going, Paul. We actually have a record of who Jeffrey Epstein flew there, the young girls that are there. We have a significant amount of information on what was going on and who was on those planes. And it's coming out and will continue to come out. Will continue to come out going forward. And what I find interesting about the special is it does suggest that the case is not over in any way. The case is nowhere close to being over. And we are certainly still in the process of seeking justice for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and justice as well for his collaborators, Ghislaine Maxwell, and many of the celebrities and wealthy elites who rode on his plane, like the Clintons and Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio. It goes on. The list goes on. The list goes on. You know who it doesn't include? Donald Trump. Donald Trump actually kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago once he discovered that there were allegations against one of his guests' daughters. Said Jeffrey Epstein was inappropriate and tried to be sexually inappropriate with her. And from that moment on, Jeffrey Epstein was banned from Mar-a-Lago. something that the left won't tell you about because they're desperate to figure out how to attach what they have done, their criminal activity, their collusion with the Ukrainian government, giving their sons free jobs, so that they can continue to launder that kickback money. Their collusion with the Russian government, selling Uranian assets to Russian officials. Their manipulation of Middle Eastern politics, destroying Libya, taking out Gaddafi after he was cooperating. It goes on like this. It goes on like this. They continue to try to blame Trump for exactly what they've done. In particular, this vast pedophile network that they had of pedophile elites, pedophiles, rich elites who were being serviced by Jeffrey Epstein as a pimp, a child pimp to the rich and famous. Sad. It's sad that the left is more interested in figuring out how to connect Trump than they are actually shocked at what Jeffrey Epstein did and all of the people connected with them. That you would look the other way, knowing full well that somebody like Bill Clinton was on the plane 26 times, that you would explain that away while trying viciously to make a connection between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein that does not exist, is a mental disorder. And it is something that you should seriously consider getting mental help for. If you have that problem, if you're one of these people, and there might be some in the room because we do have some trolls in the room tonight. If you are one of these people who have the problem that you are willing to overlook Bill Clinton's obvious and chronic connection with Jeffrey Epstein in order to feature a spurious and inadvertent connection between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, you have a mental condition. Your hatred of President Trump is actually making your life hard to live. Probably you're losing sleep. It's probably affecting your diet. I'm sure it's affecting your relationships. If you're able to have one, you should go and, seek help, get better. He's a president. He's your president. There were other presidents that sucked. We didn't freak out. None of us were lighting ourselves on fire about it. So y'all need to figure that out. Maybe get a hobby. Let's go with that. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the Virginia gun sanctuary situation. We have a problem in Virginia. Obviously, that problem stemmed from allowing radical leftist Democrats in Northern Virginia, or Nova as we call them, to elect a governor that, I would say to the trolls, how do you, as a Democrat, how do you support anybody who runs as a Democrat? I know a lot of them are Bernie bots, and they're like, oh, I don't support the Democrats, I support Bernie. But Bernie is running with the Democrats. He votes with the Democrats. He caucuses with the Democrats. So he stands next to the people who are doing these exact things, who literally are voting in governors who were happy to go to parties in blackface. The left is living in a world where when they do, what is the is it Mary Poppins? But they have chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim chiroo. Yes, the chimney sweep song. When they do that play, they can't put soot on their faces anymore. You know why? Because having any blackness on your face is now blackface. Any blackface, any look like if I take this marker right now and I just start to do that, I just make a mark on my hand, I have black hand now. I'm doing black hand on camera. Black hand. Because I put black on myself, you see. It's ridiculous. It's a chimney sweep song. They have soot on their face from the chimney. So this is the world we're living in, but it's totally acceptable to be blackface if you're the Democrat governor, because in fact, all of the outrage you lefties have on this issue is entirely fake. You actually have no concern whatsoever about whether or not people are mocking black people. You have only an urge to attack Republicans because that's what your overlords have told you. So unfortunately, Virginia has a governor, far deep blue, who is walking around happy as a lark, pictures in his yearbook in blackface. Nobody cares. They're passing post-birth abortion laws. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And now, of course, they've elected enough Democrats into the legislature to start to really challenge the long-held value of the Virginian people to protect the Second Amendment. Now, I like to, every time we talk about the Second Amendment, it's important. I like to check. Let's just check again because, the Democrats act like when I close my eyes, this is our beautiful little Constitution. The Democrats act like when I close my eyes and go to sleep, the Constitution rewrites itself. It's a living document, right? It rewrites itself. So I just like to check every so often if the amendments have changed. And let me see. Second Amendment, here it is. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Didn't change. It didn't change from the last 1,000 times I have read it. So, what do we have going on in Virginia that has allowed a people, Virginia, one of the biggest Second Amendment folks in the state, when you meet a Virginian, the first thing anybody from Virginia says is, where are you from? And you go, where are you? Tell everybody where you're from. And then if you're not from Virginia, your Virginian friend will immediately tell you, you should move to Virginia. We can open carry here. That's the first thing every Virginian will say to you. They are so proud. Every Virginian I have met is so proud of their gun rights. And yet, they have fallen down and allowed the Democrats to step in. And the Democrats are taking every bit of opportunity to move the bar as far as they can. So there have been bills in place to ban certain kind of weapons. There are bills in place to ban any teaching of martial arts, any firearms training, any fighting training whatsoever. Self-defense training will be made illegal. If you were teaching your kid how to box, that would be illegal under this bill. The new bill that is being put through the process as we speak is a total gun ban on the Capitol, which, of course, conservative lawmakers who often carry their legally registered firearms onto the Capitol building for their own safety are very upset about that. Now, there is a rally on the 20th of January. A lot of us DMV patriots, DC, Maryland, Virginia, a lot of folks are going to be on. Yeah, I can see your comments. I just don't listen to insulting comments, Chris. So we're all going to be going down to Richmond, Virginia, where we will be standing up with our Virginia citizens to fight against these radical attempts to undermine the Second Amendment. Now, because Virginia has become so concerned, there are several states and cities that are becoming Second Amendment sanctuary cities. They are passing laws and resolutions that state that they will not enforce or support any law by the state of Virginia that attempts to, requirements at the shooting range. That's right. That's another bill that they're pushing against, Tim. That's correct. They are these sanctuary counties and sanctuary cities will not enforce any gun confiscation or gun ban statewide that is put through the Virginia legislature. So, yes, 1/20/2020, and it's going to be an all-day event. There is plenty of hope, Angels, but here's the thing we have to, here's where I think we have a concern. And I have this concern having seen boots on the ground, talking to individuals who are operating in the various state political arenas for President Trump and for the Republicans. Here's our problem. We have some pearl-clutching never-Trumpers on our side, on the Republican side. And the pearl-trumping never-Trumpers, the pearl-clutching never-Trumpers, they have party powers. in these parties. And so we have division. Virginia is very bad with this. We have new MAGA patriots who are coming up. We have people who have been in politics, like Corey Stewart, been in Virginia politics for quite some time. He supported the president vehemently. They were conflicted with the Never Trumpers. And so we have this division on the Republican side that frequently causes a weakness. And it is in those weaknesses where the Democrats are taking advantage. Mike Bloomberg, we're going to talk about him in a little bit more. Mike Bloomberg is spending millions of dollars in Virginia working with these bill bans, these Second Amendment restrictions that the Democrats are trying to put up. So, where they see a weakness, they will come. Where we see a weakness, they will come. Greenwich, it's a good question. What's more important, our kids or our guns? If we do not have the ability to defend ourselves, we cannot defend our children. So if our kids are important, then our guns are also important. If our guns are not important, what you're saying to me is neither is your right to protect your family. Your kids' lives are not really that important because you would rather, for your political beliefs, not have an ability to defend yourself should a burglar, a criminal, some sort of murderer, maybe you're just in gang crossfire. I don't know what's happened to you. You're in a bad situation. You're in a dangerous situation. You can't defend yourself. You can't defend your children. And now you're beholden to law enforcement, which, bless their hearts, we love our law enforcement, but it takes 5 or 10 minutes at the most. Here in the city, if I called the cops, it would take 5 or 10 minutes to get here. Here in the city, I'd be shot and killed before the cops were able to get here and save me. So, becomes ever important to actually be able to defend yourself. Defend yourself. I don't know. Why does everybody need a phone? Grimmage, why does everybody need 36 gigs of data? Why do we all need 1,000 pictures? Why do I need 15 shirts? You know, why do I have 7 different pairs of readers? Because once you don't infringe, you don't actually get to decide how much is too much for me. How much is a collection? How much do I think I need? That's not how freedom works. Just how it is. Good to see you, Tim. Good to see you. All right, let's talk a little bit about Mike Bloomberg, because I think that there are some concerning things that we need to talk about. And exactly as I said, since Mike Bloomberg entered the race from the beginning, I said Mike Bloomberg is not here to be the presidential nominee for the Democrats. Mike Bloomberg is here to help raise funds and create an infrastructure that will allow a candidate, for example, like a Hillary Clinton, to drop in at the last minute once we have run through all of the other Democratic nominees who have failed to spark an inspiration in the Democrat voter. No, Grimmage, let's argue with this a minute, because this is entirely false. Grimmage, it is not. The Second Amendment does not give me the privilege to own a gun at all, if I qualify. None of that is in there. Let's read this again, just because you need to be really clear. The Second Amendment, in fact, the Bill of Rights, is a list of things the government can't do to me. It's not a privilege the government gives me at all. These are the God-given rights the government cannot take from me. Number one being the establishment of religion, free speech, freedom of the press, the right of the people to peacefully assemble, and to petition the government of grievances. They cannot stop me from doing that. They don't grant me the privilege to do that. The government doesn't grant me the privilege to speak freely. They are prohibited from limiting me. That's what the Constitution does. Just like the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, a well-regulated militia being a well-armed, well-trained citizenry that is able to step up, as we had to do in our first Revolutionary War. In the Revolutionary War, we had to step up. You had to bring. Often we didn't have the military equipment. Okay, we didn't have arms to issue to everybody. We didn't have guns to issue to everybody. You had to bring your own gun. That's how we got this country. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right exists before the government. The government didn't give me the right. I had the right. I had the right. Yes. Grimmage, that's what well-regulated means. What you need to look into, and we're gonna talk about Mike Bloomberg, but what a lot of the folks who argue with this point, a lot of the folks on the left who argue with this point, you need to read the Federalist Papers. You need to read the intent, because what you have been taught to parse the words well-regulated militia, but you do not know what the words mean. You may know what they mean now. Okay, what we use the word militia for now is not what a militia was in 1776. Well-regulated, we think, oh, that means they're regulated. That means they have lots of regulations on them from the government. That is not at all what the term well-regulated meant in 1776. That's not what it meant. So in order to argue with me, the text, what a well-regulated militia is, because I've told you what that is. That is actually a well-armed group of citizens who are able to rise up in the need in a moment when the country is attacked, we are invaded, we have some need of defense. A well-regulated militia. Here's the part you guys don't ever remember. Being necessary to the security of a free state. In other words, what this clause is telling us, what it's told us every single time I've read it, and before my life, when we wrote it, what it was saying. In order to have a free state, the people must be able to defend that state themselves. A well-regulated militia. That is what a militia is. It is an army of people, of citizens. A militia. It is a non-commissioned, not necessarily enlisted. It is citizens who come together for a military action against an invader or attacker. A militia. That's what that is. Well-regulated means they need to have an ability to have shoes and coats and firearms so that we as the government do not need to provide all those things in order to not get our asses kicked. That's what it means. The Second Amendment was our founders' way of saying, hey, we kind of had to fight that war on like scraps. Like people were wrapping rags on their feet and you had all your old hunting rifles and we could have used some better weapons, but we don't have a lot of money. As the government, we don't want to tax everybody and make a lot of money through the government. We want the people to just be prepared to defend their own nation, being necessary for the security of a free state. So let's just ensconce. I'm sure they thought this was very clear. It's one of the shortest amendments. I'm sure they thought it was so clear, and yet we argue it more than any others. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And yet, we continue to have discussions over and over and over. Now, Mike Bloomberg, of course, he's a big lefty. He's a big gun grabber. He said he's not a gun grabber, but then he repeatedly issues policies that continue to support the grabbing of guns. He is also, of course, as I have mentioned, spending a ton of money in Virginia on the races there to continue to support Democrat candidates who continue to try to defeat and undermine the Second Amendment and the ability of, it's not even the folks in the country that I'm so concerned about. I got to be honest. I live here in Washington, D.C. I live in the urban environment. I live in an area where there might be crime, and I live in a very crimey neighborhood. It's a pretty good neighborhood, but there might be crime. Okay? And anywhere in the city, there might be crime. It is the people here and the people in cities like Baltimore, in Detroit, in Chicago, who are besieged by criminal violence, who cannot defend and protect their own family members. Those are the people I'm concerned about. The Second Amendment, it's funny, we often are like, well, it's these country rubes who support the Second Amendment. In reality, the Second Amendment is equally as important, in fact, if not more important, in the urban environment than it is in the country. And in reality, groups like the Black Panthers actually originated in our culture in support of the Second Amendment for Black citizens. Yeah. You know who opposed that? The Democrats. The Democrats didn't like it. The Democrats didn't want Black people to be armed legally and being able to defend themselves against their racist policies of segregation and terrorism and lynching threats, that the Democrats imposed upon the Black community pretty much as soon as slavery was emancipated. So the history of the Black power, Black liberation movement is steeped in our Second Amendment and our Second Amendment liberties. You're absolutely right, Nick. John James from Michigan. I love him. He's great. So we have urban liberals like Bloomberg, who has made a mess of his own gun policy in New York while he was in charge there. He's a media mogul. He is using his platform, of course, to push this constant narrative. And now, here's what's very interesting. Mike Bloomberg has stated that whether or not he wins the nomination, he will, in fact, continue operating his mechanism, he said, of his campaign machine, if you will, through November for whomever receives the nomination. Let me repeat what I just said so you can understand what I'm telling you. Mike Bloomberg, whether he wins the nomination or not, which he's not looking very well, he's polling 5th, 6th even in the list of Democrats. Biden and Bernie are doing much better. Even Buttigieg is doing better than Michael Bloomberg in regards to the polls. And Michael Bloomberg is spending more money than any of them already. So though he is spending the most money immediately, he's one with the most ad exposure. He's got a $10 million ad buy. He and Trump are both buying $10 million of Super Bowl ads this year. He thinks he can buy the race. What has he said already? He's already saying, yeah, but if I don't win the nomination, I'm going to keep this mechanism, this apparatus up and functional, and I'm going to pay for it myself to make sure that I do everything I can to get rid of Trump. So it's almost like if only there was some pundit or newsy who had said Michael Bloomberg isn't going to be the candidate. He's just there to kind of make a system by which there is money coming in for the eventual candidate. He's testing the waters to prepare the ground for who they're actually going to drop in, who I believe is Hillary Clinton. But we'll find out. We'll find out who the Democrats are going to drop in. But it's exactly, we're unfolding. The only part of my prediction that hasn't happened yet is Hillary Clinton jumping into the race. Because already we're seeing Mike Bloomberg not be able to do well in the race, continue to spend a lot of money, raise money, and openly claim he is raising money not just for himself, but for the Democrats outside the Democrat system. So we can't keep track of that. Okay. It's going to be run like a super PAC, but it won't be run exactly like a super PAC. So we're not going to know necessarily who's contributing to this fund. And we won't have the transparency that we would if the DNC was doing it itself. And now that's going to be an available mechanism for anybody who's winning the nomination. All right. We'll find out, y'all. We'll find out. I would just say for those who choose to disagree with Suzzanne's predictions, you end up being wrong a lot, mostly because I end up being right about my predictions quite a bit. So it's your call. It's your call, as the president would say. All right, that's our show for today, folks. We got a lot of stuff going on over the next week. The March for Life is coming into town. As I said, we're getting ready on the 24th, March for Life. On the 20th, we have the gun rally down in Richmond. There's a lot going on. I'm going to do my best to keep you informed. We're going to continue doing this show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Patriots, you're welcome. Trolls, you're welcome. But just know, trolls, we're not going to talk to you unless you have something that's relevant and on topic. And I'm not doing that out of disrespect to your political opinion, even though I don't probably have a lot of respect for your political opinion, but I have respect for your right to have that opinion, even if I think it's a bad opinion. I have respect for your right to do that, but I'm not going to engage and tear down our ability to have a rational discussion. So if you want to come and comment, feel free. It won't bother me either way. We are broadcasting, of course, on YouTube, on Periscope, and on Facebook. We're going to continue to do that. I've got some exciting things to reveal to you guys all next week as well. So stay informed, stay active. Now, I was going to pop in before we turn on the music. Let me just say, because I mentioned strategy and I do want to touch base. We see what the Democrats are doing as far as strategy. Money. Money. We have some great fundraisers on our side as well. They are raising some good amounts of money. That being said, it's work. Why do they raise the money? They raise the money so that they can pay people to knock on doors, register voters, bring voters to the polls. They pay people to do the work that we are already doing. Now, are we mad that we're not getting paid? Sure, we're all mad we're not getting paid. But what are we getting paid in? We're getting paid in a country. We're getting paid in Trump. Where's the Trump? This is what we're getting paid in. So do we need to worry about the money? No, but we need to worry about making sure we get our work done. And so that is one of the key strategies. We can fight back against however much money. We proved that in 2016. We can fight back against all the money they raise if we stay active. So let's do a little bit of this.
The American dream is dead.
We're going to have some new tunes on. If there's some new tunes you'd like to share with me, Trump music, send that on over. We're mixing that up a little bit as we go forward into the year.
And stronger than ever before.
Want y'all have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, you guys, as always, stay strong. Keep making America great with me. This is our year, 2020, everybody. Till Monday. This is your girl, Suzzanne. Jumping out. Bye.